olfaction, the sense of smell. This is probably actually the majority of your tasting as well. If you knock out olfaction, really you're only going to have 5 different flavors that you'll be able to sense. Your world will become bland. It'd be a very sad situation. Now, this picture really summarizes lots and lots of topics. Let's begin over here in the left on the sagittal view. This is depicting where you would find the nerve endings and the special cells that help sense these odorant molecules. Odorant molecule just means the chemical that you smell. You will notice this on the upper portion of this nasal cavity. It feels like it's kind of underestimating exactly how much it spreads out. It's quite, I'd say maybe a third of the upper portion of this nasal cavity on either side. Something to note that these things do send out little dendrites out into the wild blue yonder as part of the mucosal membrane, the olfactory epithelium. It's exposed quite readily to different types of toxins and things such as that. You will notice that these do span across. One of my favorite bone markings that we talked about in AMP1 is this cribiform plate. If you remember, that cribiform plate was part of the ethmoid bone, but it allows for that olfactory nerve, there it is in all of its glorious nervousness, and it interacts with this first order neuron. Now, something to note and something interesting is that you'll notice that there is an olfactory gland. Basically, that's just a mucus gland. You're getting stuff being secreted out here because these odorant molecules, these smelly molecules, have to be soluble. They have to be in liquid in order to be sensed. Now, how they figured this out is kind of weird. They pretty much, to give you the gist of it, somebody tried pouring a perfume into somebody's nose and they're like, oh, that's terrible, and it didn't work. But then somebody got the bright idea of aerosolizing it, like putting it in a spray and then shooting it up their nose, and it worked. Same thing holds true with your tongue. This means if it has to be in a liquid, that means that these guys are chemoreceptors. If you're remembering back to our chat about the different types of receptors, chemoreceptors are the ones that sense chemicals. So chemicals, it's a chemoreceptor. I wonder why I reset it a couple of times. Something else cool and amazing about this is that this is the only one of the few places in the body where you see tissue regeneration or neural tissue regeneration. These cells are often exposed to these toxins, and these toxins will kill off these nerves. They can be replaced by these basal cells. These basal cells will go ahead, you can see there at the base of these neurons. If these neurons die, they will take the place, send out their dendrites, and then they'll send up the axons to the appropriate second order nerve, these mitral cells. Each one of these guys broadcasts a specific type of smell in order to the central nervous system. Now, I did mention that there are several different types and how they, and all the odorants that it senses gives us our sense of smell, which is over thousands and thousands of different types of smells. But unfortunately, there's only about 400 different types of sensory receptor types, which means that this is an orchestra going on here. One molecule can interact with multiple different types of neurons and trigger them to give you that sense of smell that you want, or that odorant molecule like vanilla or garlic or things like that that have their own unique smell. Let's go ahead and take a quick closer look at the cell membrane. Here it is. There's that neuron, the supporting cell out here, giving it some nutrients and stuff to this sensory olfactory receptor cell. These dendrites are a little bit different than what we're used to. It looks like a bad drawing that you'd see in Cartoon Network or all these new cartoons that are coming out. I shouldn't pick on that. But other than that, that's pretty much it about olfaction. Again, that old-fashioned, do remember that it does have a lot to do with your taste, and your smell work together to tell you exactly what you're eating. That information does get broadcasted down the olfactory nerve, and if you remember that it doesn't have to go to the thalamus in order to be interpreted. It just doesn't go there, right? It's not part of the reticular formation, or the if you're remembering appropriately, that reticular formation is that wakefulness. Again, it goes to that temporal lobe. And there are quite a few things that go on here in order to make it happen and work. You do not need to know that it involves a G protein complex system. This is more of a discussion of biochemistry and molecular pathways. Just know that the odorant molecule via a couple of proteins are able to open up that cation channel to push sodium and calcium into the appropriate locations in order to generate that action, graded potential, and possibly that action potential.